Hello everybody, welcome to IT Skills channel. In today's video, we're gonna look into extending our cluster. We now currently have a cluster of a G7 node or G5 nodes with actual 4 node cluster. We also have a G6 node with 3 node cluster. We're gonna extend this cluster to make it 7 node cluster. To do this, we simply have to look at this here. Over here, we have our portable foundation. We just image the nodes with the latest thing, the latest and greatest, AOS and AHV, and it's ready. The hypervisor is ready, the cluster is ready, the CVMs are ready. Now, let me switch to my next screen. So in my next screen, this is what we're gonna need to do. So I'm gonna just cancel this out of it for now. So under home and then settings, we have option to go to expand cluster. And then once we go to expand cluster, we're gonna hit next. It should discover the clusters automatically that's in our network. It takes a second, but you can see it discover the cluster. So we discover the 3 node cluster we have, and we're gonna now select all the nodes we selected. Now it's gonna retrieve the IP address for each node. And then the idea is that we will go from having a 4 node cluster to having a 7 node cluster, which is gonna give us the greater redundancy and flexibility. And it is gonna make this environment unprecedented environment. So you can see it found everything it needs. The Hyper-V hypervisor is good. The IP address is good. Everything is fantastic as it looks. So we now, all you need to do is now hit next and then continue. And then it will tell us this is gonna be HCI node. We can change it to storage node if we want to, but no need. HCI is fine. We're gonna hit next. And then it's gonna look for the network. If the network is a problem, it's an issue, but it's not a problem. So everything is perfectly fine. We're actually gonna have to do add uplink. So let's do here, uplink, check. So all the network has been added. And again, I want to emphasize that we need to pay attention to this here. The number of compute or CPU available is about 211 gigahertz. And we have 4 nodes. We have about 1.47 terabyte. That's a lot. But when we extend it, we will get more. And we almost should be having a 2 terabyte. It should be close to that roughly. And then we should have 7 nodes here, 2 blocks here, and then it will say both nodes model. So that's what we're gonna need to do. So let's come over here, scroll down, we're gonna hit next, and then detection of the new hypervisor the same as the cluster. That's great. So there's 4. We're good. We passed here. We don't need to reimage the hypervisor. If this was running on a different version or older version, we would need to reimage it. But right now, everything is checked out. We're doing super well. So we hit now expand cluster. It's gonna check its report. We're not done yet until everything checks out. So we're now gonna check the report, whether it thinks it's compatible. If something goes wrong, it will fail. But we hope that it goes success because we want it to be successful expansion of the cluster. We expanded the cluster. For why do we want to expand from 4 node to 7 node? Because we wanted to be able to have the redundancy. If 1 node goes down, we have 6 nodes to follow up. If 2 nodes goes down, we have 5 nodes to follow up. You name it. And then in this case, it failed. We need to look at why did it fail. So expand cluster failed, 100% failed. So basically we have an issue. So we're gonna need to try this again. I may skip the network this time. Hold on. It's not even showing the nodes anymore. I bet the nodes died or rebooted. So let me see. I think that's the issue because this thing's still trying to initialize the cluster even though I said abort. It didn't abort. So we're gonna have to do this again. Bummer. So let me try manual discovery. So that is an issue we run into. And that 0.1.71. We're adding manually right now because for some reason it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So let's add the 3rd node. No, it's not gonna work. We're gonna have to redo it again. This time we're gonna have to do it again. So what we need to do now is the same thing. We're gonna go through the setup. This time we're not gonna choose the cluster to be formed. So we're gonna do this. Everything is good here. Next, let's choose the AOS. It doesn't need to be. Yeah, so we can just do 7.5. Then HV is fine. And then this is gonna be 6.11. I understand. Not enable. Next. I skip cluster formation. Next. Let's put in the IP address once more. So everything is done now. So hit the start. Save is fine. Again, this is gonna be very important. So we're gonna need to just ignore this because we know what we're doing. And we know we're not gonna affect the existing cluster. If this was another day and we don't know what IP address with our cluster, all we have to do is come to the next screen. we're going to need to just go to hardware, and you can see the cluster information, and then we need to make sure the IP address is not similar to cluster. And then as long as IP addresses are not similar, we can continue. So now let's come back here, and we're going to need to just hit ignore and reimage, and we're going to let it reimage again. And then, as like I said, to save some time on the video, we're going to pause or fast forward until the image process is done. So this is basically what we're doing. For whatever reason, we still have something else pending. So it's powering off the machine, it says, and then it's going to do this again. So it's not forming cluster. So that's what we're waiting for. So whenever this is done, we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. So at this point in time, we just have to wait for this to do its thing, and then we can go from there. So while it's rebooting this, we're going to take a look at the actual IPMI address and see what the progress is for the server. So let me make sure that we can get into the IPMI. To get to the IPMI, it's pretty simple. This is the IPMI address. We can just click any of them. So we can click on 24, for example. It will take us there. And then we will log into the IPMI with our username and password. And then we will be able to get into the cluster from the IPMI point of view. Of course, I did not type in my username or password correctly, so we're going to need to try to do this again. The reason this happened is because I actually have over 200 password in my head, so it's kind of easy to mistaken for sometimes. So, but here it is. If I go to remote console, launch console, this is what we got in the view. It says here Nutanix host login. That's what it says over here. So that's what we got, and I'm going to check the deployment. It says last reboot, so it's almost done. And this one, we're doing something different. We're not doing any fancy stuff. We're not joining this to a cluster. We're basically gonna use this to just build a CVMs. That's it. So when the last reboot is completed, we should be able to extend our cluster as I showed in the beginning. And this time we won't be having any issues with the discovery, because last time we were doing a cluster formation and it interrupted everything. So the good point is always to make sure that you have a plan and you can execute your plan. If you don't have a plan, it will fail. So now I'll wait for this last reboot to complete and we'll be good. And we can already see that based on the images over here, the cluster in here is not rebooting, even though it says last reboot. So we will see what's this about. And then once it says, all operation completed successfully, then we wanted to see that. So ultimately, we need this message to show up for all the 3 clusters. Once that shows up, we're in business. We can try to extend our existing cluster over here from 4 node to 7 node. But we're waiting for this one. And to do this is simply something we will just be patient on, making sure the one we're building, the 3 node cluster we're building, or the 3 node image we were imaging, are ready for the cluster extension. When you're doing anything like this, I want a disclaimer over here. Prepare to allocate a lot of time, because it definitely takes a long time. This video, when it comes out, it may be at max 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but it's actually an hour, 1 hour process. And that's something you need to allocate. And also the planning phase is even more, because if you look at here, we have to plan all the IPs, everything else. We have to make sure we wire the host, the nodes, and then we make sure the IP, the subnet, the switch, everything is in order. Then we need to then go ahead and test it, make sure it works. Then I can only then film the process, because if I film when something does not go right or is not going properly, then it'll just make the video even longer. Even though you guys may love to see that, it's gonna be 3 to 4 hour video, so it's gonna be a long time to watch. But if you do want to see something like that, nothing cut off, everything organic. Obviously this is organic, but I'm saying if nothing, fully complete process of all the troubleshooting I have to do, feel free to comment below, and maybe I'll throw in a video that's 3 hours long of nothing left out, and you might see the back end of it. Because there's a lot that it takes to prepare for this one, not just simply just do this. We're waiting in a matter of minutes now. It should be a matter of time before we get the checkbox. The device have definitely rebooted successfully, so we know that, and we're not worried about that part. We just now need to see if it's gonna actually do what it's supposed to do. We get the login screen over here. End of the day, if you want to look at the previous logs, you wanted to see something like this. We're stuck at here right now. Let me see where we're stuck at. Here's where we're stuck at right now. So we need to make sure that Eventually we need this to say this and all those things before we can be considered this to be complete. So we got some time to go. So as you can see here, we have a success on one of the nodes. 22 is completed successfully. The log is perfectly what it says it is. Okay. Now that we need the two remaining nodes to say the same thing. All right, so we're waiting for the node B to say success. Then we can start to expand the cluster. At last, we're finally getting somewhere closer. Let's take a look at the log before it finishes. It still hasn't finished yet, but it should be a matter of probably gonna say 2 minutes maximum before we see the success. And all it needs to do is to spit out this thing for the CVM to be confirmed, and then we should be good to go. So yeah, patience is extremely important in IT. This is even more important because if you are doing this and you are, let's just say, don't have the time or you don't have the patience, you're probably not going to get started because it is a lot to get started. You have to go with a mindset that you're going to fail when you're learning anything. And you also have to go with the mindset that nothing is ever advertised. So therefore, sometimes you will try all your best and you'll find out that the vendor have issues in some of the processes and they don't document that. You have to figure out that on your own. And sometimes you end up being the one that messed up the process by not paying attention to what you're doing or just using unsupported format, whatever you name it. I'm obviously being generic, but point is be the one that embraces the change and be ready for it. So now you can see it's complete. We are happy. We are extremely satisfied. And now let's switch the screen to our main screen. So this is my Nutanix screen with 4 nodes, 1 block, G7, and we have about 4.7 terabyte of memory, which is a lot, but if we extend it, we want it to be 7 nodes, 2 blocks, and then both models showing up, G6, G7, and then the memory to show up. So to do this, come to the settings. On the drop-down menu under here, you go to settings, and then you're going to click on expand cluster. If all goes well, we should discover the cluster. Hit next. It should discover the cluster. Sometimes it takes a second, but it looks like it discovered 2 out of 3, which is not good enough. So we need all the 3 to be discovered so we can extend the cluster properly. So this is normal. If you see something like this, you just be patient with it. All right, we're going to refresh this, hit the back button, and then click on here, see if that node B will show up. It still hasn't showed up yet. Now it's showing up. So we're going to click on all the checkbox. And this is just normal formality. So it will show the cluster host IP. It will show the CVM and everything else. So node A that's the host IP. Node B, that's the host IP. Node C, that's the host IP. And then also you'll see the cluster, not CVM, but this is actually not the CVM. So let me make sure that we go ahead and go back to that. So it will show the cluster host IPMI and the CVM. So the first one is the CVM. That's the CVM IP controller VM. And then the host IP, and this is the IPMI. So that's what you got. So now we're going to hit next. And we're going to make this sure that all of them are HCI node, hyperconverged node, or infrastructure node, nothing else. We're going to hit next. The network part, it should be able to load the network. And sometimes it can be tricky. So let me add the network. Check. So that's what we did. And hit next. Now we're going to hit extend. We can run checks or we can extend the cluster. So we're going to hit run checks first. See if it was going to run the check. If the check is successful, then we can just extend it. If it fails, then we're going to need to figure out why. Sometimes, like I said before, it could be not what we did. It could be the way this thing is with my network. So we will have to just see what we see. Checks can take a while. And it's only at 60% right now. But the reason is because we already failed one extend before. So we want to make sure that we don't fail. And so we're doing a check. Hopefully it passes. If it doesn't, we're going back to the drawing board. Congratulations to us. Now we passed the cluster expansion test. We can now expand our cluster. As a reminder, remember we're going to have 7 nodes, 2 blocks, infinite resources. We're going to have about 2 terabytes of memory and maybe about 300 and 400 gigahertz speed of our core speed. So that's what we're hoping to get. But let's see if we can do that. Let's go back here, expand cluster. We hit the button. No going back now. We're just going to wait. Hopefully, it doesn't take as long as it did to test the cluster expansion test. But we'll see. We will wait. Once this is done, we will now be able to control all the 2 nodes, all the 2 blocks, and 7 nodes in total and one interface. And now we will be able to configure VMs as we please. And then we'll be able to have the confidence if one node goes down, we can then utilize the other node as a recovery. Otherwise, we won't even do this manually. It will just be automatic. So if we file 2 nodes, no problem. We'll be having 5 nodes. We'll be okay. So that's what we're going to be looking after. And this is the environment I'm building for future, not just now, because I want to make sure that I bring you guys state-of-the-art labs, testing, and I can't afford to have a VM that is running our Active Directory go down, then only to rebuild everything all over again, which is what I had to do, which is why we're doing this. So it's amazing, and I'm enjoying it, and I cannot wait for you guys to see the end result and to see our newest addition to the cluster. We already have this 4-node cluster to have 7 nodes. So this is why Nutanix is your #1 enterprise solution. Any other hypervisor, you can't just do this as easy as it is right now. You're gonna struggle. With Nutanix, simply have your new nodes on the same network, format the CVM as we just did, and then expand it. Make your cluster to have freaking 2000 node if you want. As long as you have the money, you have the hardware, and you have the configuration right, it is possible. This is why when you're running an organization, Nutanix is gonna be your best friend. Even though the equipment I'm running is extremely old, retired, none of it is under warranty, it's still, I'm showing you that what is possible. With the newer equipment like Nutanix 7, G8, actually G8, G9, you're gonna even see a lot more power, a lot more speed, flexibility, you name it. And I even believe that there are some nodes that can support GPU, which means that when you buy GPU, you can install GPU into those and then give your VMs a GPU where you can run AI processes. Amazing stuff. Or edit sophisticated videos. So I'll wait until this is done. It's going to take some time, as you can see. Once it's complete, we'll be back. Right, so now we're going to need to log back in. We waited too long because it's a long process. And I have to make sure that I get some water and come back. So it looks like we failed on the cluster expansion. We need to investigate why did we fail. This is something that was always going to be tricky because it's a lot of process, a lot of things involved. So we're going to need to figure out why did this happen, but we're going to now maybe leave the network piece alone, skip networking, and see if that will do it. Just skip the networking. This could be an issue, but we're going to do that. And I'm going to come back again. It might take another 30 minutes for this to work, but we'll come back. The only thing different we did is we skipped networking. So that could be good or bad. We'll find out. But we got to get this expansion to work. We put all our eggs in one basket. Now we're going to have to see through it. Moment of truth again. It's been going on for a while. There you go. It worked. So now we have 2 different nodes, 2 different blocks, and we also have 2 terabyte of memory, 343 gigahertz speed. So we definitely got a lot now. So now if I come over here to VMs, the other one doesn't have a VM. So now if I create a new VM or try to move one of the VMs, let me move this DC03 to the new cluster. Let's see if that works. If it migrate, you can see now we got a lot of nodes. So we're going to move this to node A. Migrate, see how it does it. It says here CPU generation not supported. Well, that is interesting. So CPU generation not supported. So what does that mean? So they're both not really. We might have to take it down then if that's the case. But overall, we did what we wanted to do. This is how much storage we have. And then the only issue now we have is that the migration and stuff is not working because the CPU generation is not supported. That's what he's saying. So we're gonna log in now, but we have dealing with 2 different CPU generations, so that's the issue. So let's see, if I go to cluster, it should show up that 1 cluster. It tells you head count, node count is that 19 VMs. So if I come over here, this is the situation we have with the cluster. It gives me everything I need to know in detail. Hardware. So this is all the host hardware situation we have. But if I click on create a new VM, let's see if it works. Oh, actually, we're going to create this on Prism Element because that's where the ISO is in there. So a new VM, test, And then we're gonna go ahead do 8. We're gonna get rid of IDE and then do this. And then we also gonna need to go ahead and actually do the container of VMs. And then we're gonna give it 80 gigabyte. And then we're gonna go ahead to ISO. We're gonna give it CD-ROM. And then we're gonna give it VirtIO. And we're gonna give the network. We're gonna give it 10.1.0.19. Where is this gonna be created at? That's the question. We're taking a look whether this VM will be created on the G7 or G5, or in this case G6. It says he created that one, so no problem. But where is the test at? It is, he created it. Now if we turn it on, we should see where it's ending up right now. I bet it's gonna be G6. It's a logical thing, but you never know. Yep, it is G6. So that's what we're dealing with. So in terms of migrating though, it's not burning, leave it alone. So now let's see. We created this thing is fine. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Although I missed the boot. I wonder if I can move this to the G7 node. Because right now we're having compatibility issue with the CPU on the G6. So we're hoping that that is not going to lead to a lot of issues. So let's just say I want to move this VM. I'm trying to decommission G6 to G7. Migrate. I want to move it to node D. Will it let me do it? That's the question. We'll check. They are on different CPU for sure. But what I'm going to try to see if it's going to work. Still trying. But ultimately, we achieved our goal for the video. We were able to extend the cluster. All I'm doing right now is doing some tests to make sure that it does work as the way I wanted to use this for. But it is taking a long time. I bet it is the compatibility issue because the G7 and G6 are not the same model and they do not use the same CPU. And I bet the cluster is what am I supposed to do with this? Clearly G6 has a lower CPU than G7 and we can take a look at that. But for now we'll wait. It's taking forever. Let's open up a new tab. Take a look at the hardware we're dealing with. The hardware we're dealing with is gonna be, come over here. If I click on G6, it should tell us what kind of CPU this is. This is the Intel Xeon Silver 4114. And then this one is Intel Silver 4214. So this is just one difference, 4114 and 4214. So super far away from each other. This one is about 20 socket, 20 CPU core, 2 socket, 1 VM. This one is 24, 2 socket, 1 number of VM4. So 2 sockets. So it should technically work. This is the lowest migration I have seen. It does not take this long to migrate. Let me try this one. Right now I'm just making it more confused, but I do want to see. This one didn't even try. Let me shut it down, one of them. I'm going to shut down DC3 and see if I can migrate that way. Definitely completely defeats the purpose of this. We're going to shut it down and then we're going to try to migrate that way. Shut down. Let's try to migrate while it's shut down. I don't expect this to work. Oh, I don't even do the migration while it's turned off. Anyways, that's how we're going to end it, guys. I will troubleshoot why I cannot migrate certain VM and then we'll go from there. Take care. Have a good day, guys. See ya.